These are 6 players that you are just going to regret if you fall asleep on them heading into the 2023 season for the San Francisco 49ers. You don't want to be there in the regular season like, oh, I slept on this guy. We're going to tell you who to keep your eye on heading into training camp. Let's get this thing cooking. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, Sourdough Squad? Tuesday. Do you know what that means? It means one day closer to training camp. Woo! You better get excited. You better get excited. Lil Saint says, I swear, if you say Sam Darnold, I don't know. You better stay tuned, stay locked in, and see what I got cooking today, because you never know what this ginger beard is going to unleash. But before we get into the 6 players that you should not sleep on going into this season for the San Francisco 49ers, we actually had a little bit of news. Some rare roster move action in the middle of June. Is it a splash move in any kind or any sorts? Nah, not necessarily, but hey, something to talk about. So, in case you missed it, the San Francisco 49ers have waived undrafted free agent linebacker Mariano Marin, the undrafted rookie linebacker out of Minnesota. He was one of the 12 undrafted free agents signed from the 49ers' original UDFA class. I'm not too concerned about this. Apparently, there's some kind of injury designation or something like that in regards to this roster transaction. Teams will have until Wednesday to be able to claim him potentially. I don't really foresee him getting claimed. It was one of those signings, like typically, we get into the signings, especially the undrafted free agents. He wasn't a guy where I was like, ooh, this is going to be a dark horse. He didn't really feel like a fit. I know you guys remember, like I had Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles on. He's a converted safety. Like we joked about, it's like you got to be a converted safety to be able to be a middle linebacker or be a linebacker on this team, because that's seemingly what all these linebackers are, at least from a traits perspective. And Mariano is he's kind of your old school kind of thumper type middle linebacker. So I thought it was an interesting signing. But apparently he is no more for the San Francisco 49ers. It'll be interesting to see if he reverts to injured reserve. I know they have that thing when you get waived with an injury designation and you don't get claimed, there's a chance that you can revert back to IR. So he could be stashed for the year. We'll see. We'll find out. But we did get a little bit of roster movement. One less linebacker to compete for the 5 spots heading into training camp. Pretty soon here, we're going to do a 53-man roster projection. Clearly, we're getting some guys weeded out. But what that does mean, though, is there should be a corresponding move. Who are the San Francisco 49ers going to bring in to round out the 90-man roster? So that currently the San Francisco 49ers have 89 players. They're going to want 90 heading into training camp. Who's out there? Who should the 49ers be peeking at? Any players that come to mind? I mean, obviously, I know 49er fans want to see an edge player added, but maybe there's someone else that the 49ers bring in, maybe a rookie, maybe a vet that they want to bring in just in case. Let's see. This wasn't on the agenda for today, but because there is an open roster spot available, and then we'll get into the 6. Be patient, stay tuned, stay locked in, smash that like button, drop an SDS in the chat. What's good, gang? Happy off season to you all. But there is an open roster spot. Wake up, honey. There's an open roster spot. Do the 49ers get a little crazy? Do they bring in a Clowney? Do they try to bring in a Marcus Peters, a Yannick? I don't know. Justin Houston, Van Noy. Who knows? Let's see what this is. So these are free agents that haven't signed yet. Ooh, Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry would be an interesting. Julio Jones for the culture. Kareem Hunt would be interesting. Carlos Dunlap. Nah. Nasir Adderley. Didn't he retire? Am I tripping? Who else? Robert Quinn's out there. The almighty Quinn. Who else? That's really about it. Not a lot. At least from these rankings. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that means we should be on the lookout for potentially another player to come in. Jason Aponte said, bring in another kicker on brand. Absolutely on brand for Jason. But yeah, we'll see. We shall see. But again, the original topic of today is sleepers, right? We've talked so much about the top heavy nature of this roster. We've talked about the stars. We've talked about the CMCs, the Kittles, the Ayuks, the Debos. We talked about the Freddie Warners, the Javon Hargraves, the Nicky Bosas. We talked about the boys. All right. We know who the boys are. The boys have been well covered. But what we're going to talk about today are the guys that you don't want to be sleeping on. You don't want to be on the wrong side, waking up like, oh, that's actually an all-pro. Because there were some people that were sleeping on guys like Talanoa Hufanga. Shout out Huff. All-pro. First team. Legend. Hey, there might be guys sleeping on, undrafted free agent offensive linemen like Joey Fisher. There might be guys that are getting slept on, but could potentially make the roster. Not only make the roster, but make an impact. Can Joey Fisher be one of these guys? Maybe. D2 legend. Shout out to the D2 gang. Shout out Joey Fisher, 49ers offensive lineman, popping in, my boy. But today we're going to be talking about guys that you don't want to sleep on. You want to keep that one eye open on because you never know. You never know who can creep up out of nowhere to make a big impact for the San Francisco 49ers. So I'm going to start with this one. I've talked about this guy quite a bit. I don't know. It's going to be interesting because with Isaiah Oliver, nickel cornerback for the San Francisco 49ers, I really am building up this hype in my head for Isaiah Oliver because I have quickly bought in to whatever Steve Wilks is selling. I don't even think he's selling anything. I'm just buying it. Whatever I like, You hear the way the players talk about Steve Wilks. You hear the way the organization talks about Steve Wilks. You hear from Steve Wilks himself. You're like, all right, that's a player's coach. Like he fits in with the Robert Salas, with the D'Amico Ryans for a defensive coordinator. You're like, all right, okay. Like Steve Wilks is legit in my opinion. I already had that inkling that he was, but even more so, I'm bought in. I'm bought into the Steve Wilks hype. Steve Wilks hive is buzzing. And one of the things that Steve Wilks keeps saying, you've said it more than one time, is that Isaiah Oliver was the best nickel cornerback in free agency. He keeps talking about how Isaiah Oliver was the best nickel cornerback in free agency and they got him. And he talks about his size, he talks about his length, and they've talked about blitzing him off the edge. And when I really and you look at who vacated that spot, Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward vacated that spot and he produced at a very high level when he was there. Now you're putting in a guy who's been handpicked by Steve Wilks, who faced this guy multiple times in division while at the Carolina Panthers when he was with Atlanta. You're talking about a guy who has 38 career starts, over 200 total tackles. One of my favorite things about watching Isaiah Oliver is he gets his nose dirty. I am a fan of cornerbacks who tackle. What's that guy? Henderson? CJ Henderson. Everyone was talking about him as being like one of the better cornerbacks a couple drafts ago. And he just was allergic to tackling. And I was like, no way. Don't want him. Don't like him. Everyone's like, oh, CJ Henderson, top 5 prospect. I'm like, nope, absolutely not. Dude doesn't tackle. He's allergic to tackling. He's turned out to be a massive bust, already been traded. He doesn't tackle. How do you play defense and you don't tackle? I don't care if you're a DB. I know Dion was famous for not being a big time tackler, but Dion was Dion. He could do whatever he wanted. So I'll let that slide with Dion. But one of the reasons why I like Isaiah Oliver is because he's going to get his nose dirty. He's going to be able to fill a gap. He's going to drop his shoulder. He's going to go heads with running backs. He's going to make tough tackles. And I really do think that you can take what Isaiah Oliver's skill set is with what Steve Wilks wants to do, and you take the snap share that is vacated by Jimmy Ward going to the Texans. Do not sleep on Isaiah Oliver. Do not. Because I do love some Samuel Womack. We do love some Samuel Womack here on this channel. He was phenomenal last year as a rookie in training camp, preseason. He was a good special teamer. We saw him really showcase his ability as a special teamer. But what I think Steve Wilks wants is experience. And you take those 38 starts, you take a guy who fits a mold and kind of an ideology for that particular position from a defensive backs minded head coach. I think Isaiah Oliver could be a guy that turns out to be a big piece on the number one rated defense in the NFL. So I know we got him for a steal. He really didn't cost all that much in free agency. And I think they're going to get him in here, and the role that he's stepping into with the defensive coordinator that he has, I'm excited about Isaiah Oliver. I'm starting to buy into the hype. I got him projected at 56 total tackles, 2 interceptions, 3 sacks. Could be maybe even more. But I also like Isaiah Oliver's ability in coverage. He has shown that he can play on the outside if he's needed to. But obviously, this group has pegged him as a guy who can play nickel. So That's what I'm looking for right now. I'm definitely looking forward to Isaiah Oliver hopping in, getting his nose dirty. And again, you look at all these underrated players on the entire roster. Like this is kind of like a spin-off of the show I did on Bleacher Report. And one of the things that I was saying on Bleacher Report was like it's actually kind of hard to find like these underrated type breakout types on the 49ers because they're so stacked. They're so stacked at every position. Like we know Ayuk's going to explode. We know what Jawan Jennings is. Like we know what Banks is. We know what Burford can be. Like we know who these guys are capable of being. And so it's when you comb through the roster and you're trying to find guys who are slept on, uh, there's not too many. And I think Isaiah Oliver's kind of at the top of the list in that regard. So there's one defense. There's one. Isaiah Oliver, don't sleep on him. Keep that name locked in so that you can sound smart. Um, to all your 49er buddies, when talking about like during preseason and getting ready to start. Oh, don't sleep on Isaiah Oliver. This new nickel cornerback that the 49ers signed, filling the Jimmy Ward role could have a lot of impact for the 49ers. They're going to be like, who? Who's that? Who? Isaiah who? Don't sleep. Don't sleep on Isaiah Oliver. Another guy that we are going to transition into. So we've done 1 of 6, number 2 of 6. And I don't think I have to prime this group too much. I think this group is woke when it comes to this player. I think that we probably have the most woke group in regards to this player, but it has to be said. The words must be spoken, and it must be written in stone that one does not sleep on 49ers running back Jordan Mason. One does simply not sleep on Jordan Mason. If it was funny, I saw some of the comments on Bleacher Report. They're like, "Who? Who?" I'm like, "You don't know who Jordan Mason is? I'm sorry for you, brother. I'm sorry." They're like, "Who?" One does simply not sleep on Jordan Mason. And if you are genuinely asking the question, who, like you're doing something, I'm praying for your fandom because you, my friend, have not been paying attention. Jordan Mason has the op right now to go crazy. He has the opportunity to go crazy. He only had 43 rushes last year in 16 regular season games. Only 43. But on those 43 carries, that man racked up 6 yards a carry. 6 yards a carry. Only 1 touchdown, but you remember how close he was to like 3 more touchdowns? He got knocked out of bounds at the 1 against Seattle, that like 50-yard run. He got like the majority of his yards on that one run from Seattle. He got stopped at the 1. It was a good run. He just fell short against Arizona in the last game. But I think this is my advice. Kyle, I know you're watching. I know you're a big fan of the beard. I know you think I'm one of the smartest 49ers creators out there. Thank you in advance for admitting that, Kyle. Big fan of you, and I'm glad that you're a big fan of our show. But if I had to give some completely unsolicited advice to you, Kyle, my advice would be we got 20 games that we're aiming for in 2023, I need CMC as fresh as we can get him. Listen, and that's coming from someone who owns a couple CMC shares in Dynasty. There would be nothing more for my own personal satisfaction for CMC to get force fed the ball 70 times a game. I would love it. It would make me win fantasy football games. I would win a lot of money, and my team would win football games. But what I don't want to see is CMC just driven into in between the tackles when we're closing out games. When we are in 4-minute offensive mode, I would love for CMC to be a part of it, but I would love to see those types of carries go to guys like Jordan Mason, just like you did against the Saints. Because remember, in the Saints, CMC got a little dinged up. So they had to rely on Jordan Mason. There was no Elijah Mitchell. Elijah was out. So they needed Jordan Mason to close out that game, and he did it as a rookie, and he did it phenomenally well. So that's my advice for Kyle. I know you're listening, Kyle. Big fan of your work. Thank you for always tuning into the show and the ginger beard. That's it. Let's keep CMC as fresh as we can. I still want CMC to get 20 plus touches a game. That's a given. Like that's a bond that we share. But however, I want to see Jordan Mason utilized in short yardage. I want to see Jordan Mason utilized as a pass catcher out of the backfield. And I really do think you will see Jordan Mason blossom into one of these running backs that just no one is expecting. Got to give it to JP, man. And of course, Elijah Mitchell is standing in Jordan Mason's way, and Elijah Mitchell is a phenomenal running back in of himself. Like Elijah's problem has never been talent. He's very talented running back. But right now, we do have concerns with Elijah's durability. Because unfortunately over the last year, it's just, again, I'm not a person who subscribes to injuries are a player's fault. It's just to me, it's bad luck and it's circumstance, unfortunate circumstance. But with one of the unfortunate circumstances is that Elijah Mitchell has struggled with injury concerns. That is where, like, if Elijah gets dinged up, even if he's not, I really think Jordan Mason needs more carries. I do. And I think he needs to score more touchdowns, and I think he needs to be used as well out of the backfield. Like let's get some CMC and Jordan Mason on the field at the same time and see what Kyle could cook up with that. So obviously I don't have to really convince this group not to sleep on Jordan Mason, because I know this group is one of the original hives that we got. I mean, we have probably the originator of the Jordan Mason hive in the chat. So like this is kind of like round zero for the Jordan Mason hype train. So I would imagine you guys are already up to speed. We're kind of just going over some old notes, just kind of rehashing some talking points. This is more for Kyle. This is just more for Kyle. Kyle's listening. Shout out Kyle Shanahan, best coach in the NFL, not named Andy Reid. Listen, Kyle, you're so close. We're going to get it. We're going to get it this year. I have faith in you. And how we're going to do that, how we're going to get to the tippy top, we got to get Jordan Mason some touches. That's what we're going to do. We're going to keep CMC healthy. We're going to keep him fresh for the playoffs. It's time. It's time to unleash. It's time to unleash some Jordan Mason. All right. So glad we got that out the way. Appreciate you for listening, Kyle. You're a legend. Also, this guy that I have on the do not sleep list. I think after seeing some of the discourse around um, this particular player, I do feel like he slept on. And so, because of that, I want to put him on this list because it's an interesting position. It's a position that is misunderstood greatly. It's a position that doesn't get a lot of love. It doesn't get a lot of flowers or anything thrown their way. But some of the discourse that I've seen seems to be pretty concerned about it. So I would like to officially put the SDS on notice. It is time to officially not sleep on right tackle Colton McKivitz. We just can't allow that type of behavior in our community. Now, is Colton McKivitz going to come out and be a top 5 right tackle? Probably not. And if he was, I would be surprised. But what I do believe Colton McKivitz will be for the San Francisco 49ers is a quality starter. He's done it before. Again, I've been quietly on the Colton McKivitz hype train for a better part of a year and a half or so, when discussing who should be the swing tackle, who's the next man in line. Is it Jalen Moore? Is it Colton McKivitz? Is it back in the day when they had Coleman? Like, who's is it? Oh, they even brought in a veteran last year that had a bunch of starts under his belt. Like, who's going to be that guy? For me, it's been Compton. And I've told this story and I'll tell it again because that's what we do here. When he had to step in week 18 for the San Francisco 49ers against the Rams in a must win game, and he had to go up against Leonard Floyd and Von Miller, and he held his own and he did his thing. That was when I'm like, okay, the Colton McKivitz redemption arc is nearly complete. What going from being cut after a training camp to now being the locked in starting right tackle. I think you can have your reservations about the expectation of what Colton McKivitz could be, but I'm telling you, he will be a competent starter. The offense will be able to execute the way it wants to be. I think he adds a little bit in pass protection, maybe a little bit of a step back in the run game, but he can still be effective in the run game because just remember, hey, Tom Compton, who absolutely terrified when he came in, just and no disrespect to Tom Compton, but uh Tommy Compton didn't have the best track record and was really scared about what the offense would look like. Turns out Tom Compton turned out to be one of the better run blocking offensive linemen during that little time period. So uh, it's just another example of sometimes your own expectations and perceptions can be your worst enemy. And I really do think Colton McKivitz will be able to function and function well. The thing about Colton is he has experience at left tackle, right tackle, left guard, right guard. He's officially the Swiss Army knife. He's been the Swiss Army knife for a while, being able to play both outside and inside. And, I know Brunskill gets a lot of credit for that, but I do believe not Compton, Colton McKivitz will be a guy that is able to step in and ball out. And I think the 49ers offensive line won't skip a beat. I think Burford improves. Whoever, if it's going to be Feliciano, potentially get some run. I think he'll be an improvement. Brenda will get better. Banks will get better. And like I said before, just stay the same, Trent. Just be you. I 34, 35. I don't need Trent Williams to add another gear, add another level. He's already been to the mountaintop. I just need him to stay the same. That's it. And with that offensive line, the 49ers will be able to get it done. They really will. With play design, the way that they attack defenses, they'll be able to be all right. So don't sleep on Colton. I know a lot of people have some concerns with Colton. They don't, but just because they don't know what they're going to get. And if anything, last year, I don't think the 49ers offensive line was the best version of themselves last year. There's still plenty of room for improvement, plenty of room for building up some consistencies, and things like that, and kind of eliminating some mistakes. But it was with everyone. I really do think that the 49ers offensive line will actually take a step forward. And that's even with McGlinchey leaving in free agency. Um, they'll lose a little bit in the run game, but I do think they'll be the same, if not maybe just a tidbit better in pass protection with Colton McKivitz. I think Colton is a little bit more stout. He's less likely to get tossed, like we've seen in the past. So I'm excited for Colton, man. I think Colton's gonna be all right. So don't sleep on Isaiah Oliver. Don't sleep on Jordan Mason. Don't sleep on Colton McKivitz. So we're halfway through. 3 guys that you don't want to be on the wrong side of sleeping, just in case. Now, all 3 of those guys, I would say out of the first 3, the most upside goes to Jordan Mason. I think Jordan Mason has the most upside. He's the youngest. He has the potential to really blossom. I think Isaiah Oliver out of those 3 will have the most production. I think Oliver will be the most productive. I think Mason has the most upside. I think Colton is a better perception. He's better than perceived to be. So for those first 3. So for my 4th player that I don't think we should sleep on, that, the more tape study that I've done, the more research that I've put into him, I really do think Clelin Ferrell is going to have a pretty solid role on this team. And I know we talk about a lot, like the 49ers need to sign another edge defender. They need to bring in Yannick. They need to bring in a Clowney. They need to bring in a Justin Houston, which, in all honesty, would be nice, because who doesn't want to have more talent at the edge? Like, let's be real with ourselves. But what I do think is that Cleveland was brought in to be a pretty big time role player. I really do. And the reason why Cleveland has just like this really negative perspective, I believe, is because he was overdrafted. He wasn't the 4th best player in that draft. We know Josh Allen was a better pass rusher. We know for sure Brian Burns was a better pass rusher than him. I know why the Raiders selected him out of Clemson. They selected him because he was a elite intangible guy. He was when you talk about leadership, you talk about a culture guy. Cleveland coming out of Clemson, where all Clemson was doing was winning, and he was one of the foundational pieces in that locker room. I know why Mayock took him at 4. I don't agree with it, but I do think they drafted him more so than just his physical tools. But of course, when we evaluate, we're evaluating the measurables, the physical tools that they provide. And with Cleveland, I don't necessarily see him as an edge rusher. He is an edge rusher. He will be an edge. He's more of a big end, in my opinion. He's not a Leo. I really don't think he's a Leo. I think he's definitely a big end. He's 6'4", 265 pounds. He's that perfect kind of Charles Omenihu, Arden Key type. So when I look at Cleveland, I look at a guy who's going to be able to be moved kind of all over the defensive line. I see him rushing the passer more from the interior. I see him being a 3-tech rusher more so than a wide 9 rusher. I don't think he is best suited to be a wide 9 rusher. Can he do it? He can, but I don't think he'll be that effective. He does have he has a really good first step get off, but he doesn't have that gear to get around the edge. So for me, I think you add a guy like Cleveland with Chris Kosarek, and we know what Chris does with these defense, and we know what Chris does with these reclamation projects. I mean, you talk about a coach getting the most out of Arden Key thrown to the garbage by the Raiders, thrown in the garbage by the Raiders, comes in, gets 6.5 sacks with the 49ers. Charles Omenihu, they trade Omenihu from the Texans for a 5th round pick. Omenihu comes in, has 43 quarterback pressures and 4.5 sacks. They all fit the same mold of defensive end. They're not your edge burners, which is what I want, which is what we all want. We all want that burner on the opposite side of Bosa, but I do think Cleveland offers this unique length that will match up well with guards. I really do. I really, really do. And understanding how the 49ers have used this type of body in the past, they are literally just interchanging. Like Arden Key, cheap, got production, let him sign elsewhere. Omenihu got him for cheap, produced. Omenihu got the bag from the Chiefs. Now Cleveland has an opportunity to get him for cheap, produce, see what happens. So there's clearly this kind of track record that the 49ers have with this type of D end. Not that speed guy, not that burner, not that D Ford, not that prototypical edge, but that like tweener edge. It's like in between a defensive tackle and an edge. So I think that's where he's going to find his role. And then when you have defenses keying on Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, and again, this is where you're going to be able to potentially get Eric Armstead playing out of the wide 9, which I know a lot of people aren't fans of, but he has produced from that spot before. He's looking lean and mean. And I think that's why he's looking lean and mean, is because they are going to put him on the edge and they are going to move these guys all over the place. One of the other things that I really like about Cleveland is he can cover. For his size, for being 6'4", 265, he does kind of move like a linebacker in short area space. So you could theoretically bring nickel corner blitzes. You can bring Isaiah Oliver off the edge, and then you could drop back Cleveland into coverage to play underneath over the middle, potentially try to get those picks from quarterbacks who aren't reading the defense properly. He has proven he can be somewhat effective in coverage. So I think Cleveland could be a guy. So I'm not going to sleep on Cleveland with the success that I've seen the 49ers have with these types of edge players. I can't do it. You know, you saw Kerry Hyder have 8 sacks in a season back, in 2020. Like Kerry Hyder isn't your prototypical edge, right? They figure out how to get talent out of these spots. So that's what I'm looking for. So that's 4. Let's see. Number 5. Number 5, don't sleep on this guy. I think Danny Gray is going to bounce back. I really do think Danny Gray is going to have a year where he plays pretty well. Now, obviously, with all the weapons that the 49ers have, I really don't think that, he's going to have this crazy breakout year, but I think he's going to show enough that people are going to be able to understand why he was taken in the third round. They're going to kind of be like, all right, maybe he's not a bust. We understand that how much production are you really going to have as like the sixth option in a stacked offense that runs the ball a lot? Probably not a whole lot of production, but I do see him showing why he was selected there. I'm holding out hopes on Danny Gray, that because I really think Danny Gray is more than that, just that 4-3-3 burner. I really think he can do it when it comes to contested catches. I think he can do it over the middle. I think he's going to challenge Ray McLeod for more snaps. One of the things where I think he's going to be able to maintain his roster spot is he's proven to be a solid gunner on special teams. So I think his ability to play special teams is also going to solidify his spot. And I've talked about it before. Towards the end of the year, you could see on tape that the willingness to block was there. And so with that willingness to block, that no block, no rock, just like Ayuk said. So if Danny Gray is continuing to put in that effort, we heard reports that he's adding size, he's getting bigger. I saw today he was working on boxing training, which seems to be the entire 49ers team is doing a ton of boxing off-season training to be able to, work hand-eye coordination, to work cardiovascular, all those different types of things. I really do think Danny Gray is going to take that step forward, understanding what's expected from him, understanding what Kyle wants. I do think Danny Gray is absolutely going to prove to us why he was taken in the third round. I don't think he'll be pushed. Um, you know, I think Ronnie Bell, Tay Martin, Isaiah Winstead, there's some, Chris Connolly, there's some quality wide receivers that are behind him that are going to be nipping at his heels and is going to be making it very difficult. But I think this is the year he takes a step forward. Because again, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're not staying the same, and I don't expect Danny Gray to stay the same. I expect him to get better and really be able to showcase his ability. So I think Danny Gray takes a step forward for the San Francisco 49ers, and he is able to make an impact. So don't sleep on him. So what do we have? We have Jordan Mason. We had Isaiah Oliver. We had Colton McKivitz. We had Clelin Ferrell, Danny Gray. This guy isn't going to be a popular guy, I don't think. I don't think he's going to be too popular. I don't think people have a ton of expectations for him. There's a ton of competition at his spot, multiple rookies drafted at his spot. I don't think people have a ton of expectation for this player. But I'm not, I don't know if I don't think he'll turn into a cornerstone type player. But I do think a lot of I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on him a little bit. And so, again, this is where I'm saying, like, these guys aren't necessarily going to be breakout, but they're going to be guys that are going to contribute at a decently high level and that are going to be able to kind of make a name for themselves. I think that I've talked about him a lot. And like I said, there's a lot of competition. A lot of competition coming for his neck, coming for his spot. I think Oren Burks, linebacker who can step into that Azeez Al-Shaair role. I think he will continue to kind of keep a stranglehold on that position for one more year. He's under contract for one more year. I don't think I don't think he'll be a guy that maybe the 49ers like re-sign to a bigger deal just because I do see the 49ers drafting D Winters and Jalen Graham and having Marcelino McCrary Ball as kind of their future plans. But I think just for this year, I think Oren Burks is a guy who's going to get a lot of play time. Um, he's a guy that I've been paying attention to since last year. He stepped in and filled in admirably for Aziz Al Shair when they needed him. He's already a core special teamer. Um, he's one of those just quiet, put your head down and get to work type players. And I really do think his experience is what's ultimately going to keep him in that role. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to be the only person, rotating in at the Sam linebacker position. I do think we're going to see some of the rookies. I do think we're going to see Marcelino. We'll see DFF. It depends on who actually makes the roster. But I do think Oren Burks will be able to hold off the young guns. I do think that. I think D Winters, Jalen, I think Marcelino McCrary Ball is actually going to challenge him the most. I think DFF is just a solidified special teamer. He has a chance. I mean, they all have a chance to be able to compete for this Sam linebacker spot. But I do think the experience that Oren Burks has and what Oren Burks was able to step in and do last year, I do think will help him hold that spot. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of D Winters hype, a lot of Jalen Graham, Marcelino McCrary Ball, all that good stuff. But I would not sleep on Oren Burks. I think for this year, he will kind of be a mainstay in that linebacking core, and I think he'll make some plays. So those are my 6. Let's recap it again. We had don't sleep on Jordan Mason, Isaiah Oliver, Danny Gray, Clelin Ferrell, Colton McKivitz, and Oren Burks. I think guys that I think have the opportunity to do things and take steps forward that maybe some don't believe. And who knows? I may end up being wrong. I may end up missing on some of these guys, but I feel pretty confident. I feel pretty confident in these 6 that they're all going to take steps forward and they're all going to kind of solidify themselves in this league. Now we'll see what it ultimately looks like, but looking forward to these like types of competitions, I'm really looking forward to like the fringe stuff. We definitely get wrapped up in the main positions, the superstars, all that type of stuff. But I'm looking toward. I can't wait to see the underdogs. I can't wait to see the guys that are kind of being counted out, kind of being slept on a little bit, and seeing how they take steps forward. So I'm excited about it. But shout out to all you guys for tapping in on this Tuesday. Oh man, you know what that means? One day closer to training camp. Let's go. One day closer. Ooh, I need football in my life. But I am enjoying this time to kind of relax, kind of retune, get back to doing some family stuff. I'm enjoying my time in the off season. I hope you guys are enjoying your time in the off season as well. I know you guys are itching to get football back just like I am. Ooh, I think this is a good one. I'm looking forward to seeing the most is Kalia Davis. I think that's a good one. That's a good one. That's a guy that's worth not being slept on. Definitely a good one. But I am enjoying this off season so far. Getting ready. We got to reset the batteries, Like I keep trying to remind myself. I'm always like, you got to go at 100 at all times. And I'm like, listen, it's the off season. Well, we're going to get on here. We're going to talk about 49ers football, of course. But also, it's like we got to recharge a little bit. We kind of got to recalibrate so that when training camp is here, we're going 150 miles an hour, balls to the wall, content, all of it. So if you see me posting a little bit less, don't be afraid. Don't be worried. We're recalibrating. And when that season starts, we're cooking. But shout out to everyone for tapping in and vibing with us all throughout the this off-season period. Shout out to all you guys tapping in to the lives. Shout out to everyone who watches the videos that I post and like and comment and all that good stuff. It is appreciated. And I'll see you guys tomorrow on Wednesday. Appreciate you all. I'm out of here. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to